Okay, let's do it.
Okay,
So I was
bismillah.
going to talk about, you spoke about speech.
Yeah.
And I think that the biggest thing that was on my mind during your talk was how much this relates to having good friends. Because the way I thought about it is that we're not accountable for our inner monologue, is that right? But we are accountable for what we speak. But our inner monologue affects our speech. And my understanding is that if you're around friends who are constantly talking bad about people or swearing, it's going to cause an effect on your inner monologue. And you can see this with children, right? Because children, like, they're like sponges, mashallah, like they have a great learning ability. And you see children who, subhanAllah, like they have terrible speech, they're swearing already at school, they're doing all these sorts of things, and it's not like children actually have any evil in them. So they're just reflecting back what they're listening to. So obviously, could you speak on what it is, why is it important to have good people around you and how that's going to affect your inner monologue?
So the inner monologue is a very important thing to preserve. And that's something that Ibn al-Qayyim talks about the fact that the glance leads to a thought leads to fantasizing leads to a will leads to determination leads to an action. So there's the step between like the khatir, that passing thought, and then you engaging with that thought, and that thought then essentially taking you down a slippery slope. So I like how you put it, that inner monologue. And I think the way we can conceptualize it is preserving that inner monologue so that it's something that only brings out like a good thought or a good idea. And the inner monologue is not 100% conscious. Like you can actively choose to think about something, but oftentimes you are passively receiving thoughts. And like, where are they coming from, right? Like you're just sitting there and you're driving and then thoughts are just coming into your head, into your consciousness. Where are they coming from? So it's kind of determined from many different factors, but as you've described, if a person is surrounded by people who are swearing, talking bad about other people, then it's like an imprint onto the heart. In another place, Ibn al-Qayyim, he says that the nafs is like, or the heart is like an empty tablet, like a lawh. And thoughts are like inscriptions that are becoming inscribed and imprinted onto the heart. So every time you hear something from someone, it has to become a thought in your head. If you're not evil yourself, but you're listening to people saying evil things, that's going to come into your mind and it's going to imprint onto you and is going to have an impact. And then you will notice that, if you're around people who are angry all the time and people who lose their temper all the time, you'll start getting agitated because you are taking in what you are seeing and then you are then acting in accordance. There's also something called mirror neurons. In the last kind of 20 years, they became very popular as kind of a new discovery within cognitive psychology. Mirror neurons are neurons that fire when you see someone doing an action. So there are actually mirror neurons that almost mimic that action in your brain. So subhanAllah, what Ibn al-Qayyim said about inscribing something, like your thought inscribing something, this is literally what it is imprinting something in your brain. And these are the mirror neurons to kind of help, because the human being is very hardwired to imitate. So a person who's constantly around these bad influences, it's going to really affect that inner monologue. As you said, it's going to affect what kind of thoughts come in. And that's then going to then determine things like mood. Because you always think about negative things because that's who you're around. And you're just always going to be a pessimistic person. Then that's going to affect your mood. Your mood's then going to affect your relationships. Your relationships going to then in turn affect your mood more. And that's also going to affect, most importantly, how you connect with Allah. Because if you're sad and depressed, it's very hard to actually connect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is something that's really important. And it's something that is a struggle because, we live in a society where vulgarity, especially in Australia, people swear here like crazy, don't they? Yeah. And so, we live in a society where, you're exposed to it at many different levels. I mean, if you're just trying to watch an interview or a podcast, you just hear all this negativity and you just realize it is going to start affecting you.
And the thing is desensitization as well, because alhamdulillah, like I guess I made a bit of a change in myself in that I tried to clean my tongue a little bit in terms of swearing. And then now when I'm in public and I just hear someone that I don't know like swearing, I'm almost like I'm very tense. Like I feel like something's going to go down. Whereas that actually used to be the norm.
Yeah.
When you're in high school among your friend group, that's actually like very normal, everyone's swearing. And then now it's like, almost like, and it should be like that, shouldn't it?
Yeah, you should
Because the
have.
more comfortable it becomes in your mind, then the more likely you are to actually move into the action yourself, right?
Yeah. Hey, we have a question from the audience, alhamdulillah. Bismillah, here, take it.
Assalamu alaikum. So, Imam, question is, what you just explained. So, if you have a choice, like your friends and the circle which is out of your home, you have a choice. But many kids may not have a choice with the parents, with the family. They can't choose. And it's unfortunately, what's the advice on that?
Thanks, Jamie.
Maybe you'll take a chip as you answer this question as well. So we have 3 levels. The
Jamie
first one-
prepared it, right?
My mother prepared the chutney.
Oh,
And
that was your mother.
I handmade
Mashallah.
the chips.
Yeah, of course you did.
See the level 2 of spiciness, and then
Okay,
to see how this
bismillah.
one goes. I'm not sure what's in this one, but it's not as spicy as the third one. That's the one.
There's too
I
many
took a
things
lot.
we have to guess.
I
You
took a lot. Yeah, I had
Bismillah.
some of this as well. It's very sweet.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim.
This one hits it. When I first tasted it, it wasn't spicy, but now I feel it a little bit.
There is a bit of after. Oh, it actually tastes really good, actually. You can feel that bit of a some zest to it, mashallah. So your question, I think is, it's an important one to understand the reason why, as we preface the question with, in terms of accountability, the thoughts that just automatically happen to you, in and of themselves, you're not accountable unless you actively decide to choose to engage with them or think negative about other people or be jealous or whatever it may be, or it turns into some action or some speech. Having said that, you could be accountable for the environment that led to those involuntary thoughts constantly being negative. So that's a very important point to understand as well. What you're saying is that there are certain children who grow up in an environment, broken homes, abusive parents, domestic violence, and they're exposed to this, they're exposed to swearing from their parents, for example, then it becomes something that they can't really escape. And that's why this is not something that is from the realm of things that a person is 100% held accountable for. It comes into the same question of sometimes people are born into poverty, sometimes people are born into difficult situations. It's a hardship. And those hardships will always lead a person possibly towards doing something negative as well. That's why a person needs to be patient. A person who, for instance, has been abused, they are more likely to commit abuse to another person. We know this, that the people who abuse others, the people who, child abusers, one of the biggest risk factors of committing child abuse is when you were abused as a child as well. So we see this imprinting and then this acting out. And so there are tests that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are giving to that person with their upbringing, that are they able to, with the taqwa of Allah and with faith in Allah, resist and have patience to not continue what has been imprinted and to not just continue the cycle. Just like Allah will test a person in an environment of desire or in an environment where their passions are ignited, and now they're given the choice to act upon it or not. So regarding the issue with the child, it's the same thing. This is a test that they've grown up with, and yeah, they're going to grow up with certain maybe negative thought patterns or a bit aggressive or acting out. And the idea is that the light of faith is meant to come and able to heal those wounds and those scars that they had when they were a child. Allahu Alam.
This actually leads to my other question as well, because I was thinking, so...
Are we doing the other one?
Well, actually,
Bismillah.
I think maybe we'll hold off on the other one, but maybe you should take a sip of the drink and try
There's
to-
too many things that are like,
I
there's
know,
all these
there's a lot
gimmicks
of
that are coming
different-
together.
Okay,
Bismillah.
so I think that I'm pretty confident what this one is. Should I say it or no?
This one, this tastes like
Producer?
lemon.
No, you can't just say what it is. We have to wait until... Because otherwise, like, it might tell me what it is. I think I've got a guess. I know what it is.
Okay, khalas. So we have to wait till the end. Oh,
We'll wait
already.
till the end, inshallah.
Okay, I might change my
Yeah,
mind.
so tune in. My other question was going to be, is it useful to be friends with people who are not Muslim? because on this point, the speech is going to affect you as well. And obviously, if you can surround yourself with Muslims, that's going to bring more khair into your mindset, into your thought process, and it's going to bring, like in my experience, I think it brings, qadr more into your, everyday speech. And obviously, you're going to do more dhikr when you make speech. You can say inshallah and mashallah when you're speaking to one another. So I guess there's two sides to it. You're going to maybe bring more khair to this person, but like these people can bring more khair to you. So which one is more beneficial, and how do you know? Because you don't want to be arrogant and think, oh yeah, I'm such a pious person, I can just be friends with all these kafirs, I'm going to convert all of them, by force.
By force. I like how you put by force at the end.
I mean, it's not by force, but maybe
you cannot convert by force, yeah.
Okay.
La ikraha fi din. There is no compulsion in the religion. So that's a very important question, because what I believe is that when it comes to having friends with people of different faiths, I think that obviously there's a principle in Islam of bir and justice with people who are not kind of actively persecuting you because of your religion and whatnot. So it's certainly not something that's haram per se. Having said that, and it could be the case that a Muslim is actually more of a negative influence on you than a person as a non-Muslim. Actually, it was really funny in uni in my freshman year. I was...
Sorry, what does freshman mean?
Freshman?
Yes. We have no idea. We don't know what this means.
It means first year.
First year in uni.
Yeah, first year is freshman,
18
sophomore.
Years old.
No, yeah, 18. I would have been 18, 18. Yeah, I would have been 18, yeah. So freshman, sophomore, then junior and senior, I think, is the other one. But anyways, in my first year, I actually came to that uni. There was some of my high school friends as well that came, and I went to a school where there was really no other Muslims, maybe one other Muslim. We'd have like Jum'ah with us three, that would be it. So yeah, I'd been to school with this guy from like year 7 all the way to 12 and whatnot. And so we were at uni, and it was really funny because at uni obviously is a very challenging place to navigate, because there's a lot of fitna. It's different here because you guys just go to class and come back.
You were boarding, weren't you?
I mean, yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's just the norm over there. Yeah. I stayed in the dorms and stuff. So it's a challenging environment. But what was really funny was that this guy, a friend of mine, he was a Christian. And he was a very passionate Christian, I would use that term. He wasn't like necessarily the most practicing per se. I don't know necessarily what that means, but anyways, meaning like...
He wasn't going to church on Sunday?
No, he would do all that stuff. He would do all that stuff. But I guess in terms of more like the immoral things, like, drinking, drugs, women, and stuff like this. A Christian fasiq. I hope he's not watching this. So, yeah, I mean, like this type of thing, right? Drinking, girls, drugs, and whatnot. So it's obviously rampant in the dorms and everything like this. So it was really funny because, I mean, some of those guys are Christian. He had like his other Christian friends. But he would be like, I like to hang out with you because you're a good influence for my faith. Yeah. And I'm like, oh no, that's not a good thing. So it's...
how's that not a good thing?
Because it's just encouraging him for Christianity.
Oh.
Like he's not becoming... Although I would show, like we'd be studying and I'd be listening to like Surah Maryam, and I'd be like, here, watch this and look at the transcription and stuff like this. Or look at this... Because he would open up to me about struggles like, oh man, it's so hard to just stay away, and like sometimes I'd see him high and I'm just like, dude, man. And he'd look at me with such shame when I'd catch him, and he'd just like put his head down, and after he's like, man, I don't know, just this person, they're not good influences on me. So this is a person that's in that environment and is just constantly kind of giving in. And so I actually shared with him, I'm like, listen, you need to really develop a deep fear of the hellfire. But he's not Muslim. It's just hilarious though. I'm just trying, and I'm like, here, watch this record. And so it was on YouTube at the time. This was the OG recitations where they would have like very graphic videos and then the translation. So there was one Surah Haqqa. It was by Sheikh Ahmed Ajmi, I believe, the Qari. And it was so graphic. And it was a recitation of Surah Haqqa. So Surah Haqqa is very powerful, talking about those dragged with their chains and those who are going to burn, et cetera, et cetera. And it literally shows like people like burning, like it's pretty intense. And then I'm like, you need to watch this. I'm trying to like
this was aggressive.
Give him some taqwa. No, I'm trying to like give him some taqwa so he can not go into all the other problems and stuff like this. And so he's listening to the Quran, and he's like at the end he's like, wow, that was intense.
I I mean, that's a hard position to be in because I guess a lot of Christians have this belief that Jesus will forgive me no matter what.
Yeah, it is difficult,
Jesus
isn't it?
died
Yeah,
for my sins, so I can just do whatever I want.
Yeah,
Is that what
exactly.
people
We
believe?
kind of talked about that. And I'm like,
Yeah.
look, like, and we debate religion and stuff as well. So he's a good brother. May Allah guide him. Maybe he's Muslim. Who knows?
We did
But-
watch this a few years.
Yeah, so maybe I'll reach out to want to go back to Canada. But yeah, to answer your question, the idea there is about, see, I would never go with his friends group because I think that that'd just be really unwise. The idea is that either it's like a 1v1, especially if the other person's inclined towards something, or they're part of your group, you're not part of their group.
Makes
So if you want to give da'wah to a non-Muslim, for example, the best thing to do is to include them in your friend group.
I see.
So because now you actually make the dominant culture of that social circle. Even though we're in a country that's obviously not a Muslim country, but you can actually make a landscape in someone's world very Muslim. Because everyone around them is Muslim, they're all saying Alhamdulillah, MashaAllah. I used to play a lot of like street ball, like back in Canada, like when I was in high school. And there'd just be random people who would be like, yo man, say wallahi. And I'm just like, what? And this is like, when Islam and all the things are not as common, I'm like, what did you say? I'm like, he's like, I said, say wallahi. It means like, and he's trying to tell me what it means. And I'm like, okay, no, I know what that is. And I'm like, why do you know this? He's like, yeah, that's what everybody says. And like, this is a guy who's surrounded by Muslims. You see it like even with like the Dagestanis and the UFC and stuff, like people start to say Alhamdulillah and these sorts of things. So they're actually being influenced by dominant culture that you're actually setting. And they're not in a Muslim country, but they're actually in a world where you're bringing them into your world.
Your paradigm.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
so then there's not that fear of them influencing you. But if you're in their world, then it's a different story, yeah.
I saw an interview too with Javier Mendez, who's Khabib's coach, obviously aside from his father, Rahimahullah. He was saying too that after fights, they never celebrate. He's like, there's no celebration after fights.
What do you mean they don't celebrate?
Like they're not going out in the town. And
No, obviously not partying. They obviously celebrate. They're not like, I won. I'm not happy.
Father smashed me now.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
It's very interesting, right? Because he really set, this is a good example actually with Khabib. Because he actually set a culture that didn't exist in that world. I mean, that's a world, you talk about vulgarity. And that's a world that I'm constantly being like, man, like, I don't want to listen to this stuff because every other word is a swear word by all these fighters, right? But someone like Joe Rogan, who had initially a negative perception about Islam. If you listen to his earlier podcasts, he's making fun of Ramadan. And he's saying, wow, they're eating not even water, like, what kind of God just like tortures their people like this? This is what he was saying before. Literally, Khabib comes in onto the scene. And, obviously the other people as well that are dominating, his little cousin Omar and other little cousin Usman and Islam. And all these fighters are coming through. And they are showing, and they're their own group. And they are showing, and they're creating not just a dominant culture, they're winning. That's the other important aspect.
Exactly.
Because if you set a dominant culture, but you guys are just a bunch of losers, nobody wants to be a part of you. That was like, oh, these guys just playing video games all day, sitting doing nothing. Imagine a person that's lonely or someone that doesn't have friends. They come to a group and all the things they're talking about, big ideas, they're helping each other, they're like winning at life. That person's gonna be so influenced. And that's what these guys did. They created a different culture and then they won a lot. And so someone like him then now, he starts praising Ramadan. He starts praising the discipline that comes with Islam. He starts praising their lifestyle. And he keeps saying, they don't party, they don't drink. It's so interesting hearing that from someone like him. Because, I grew up being made fun of and insulted of like, oh, you're so lame and swear you don't go to parties, you don't do this, there's no women, blah, 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 all this stuff. Like you're this and you're that. And, oh, you don't go to party and that sort of thing. You have to resist against that and just kind of stand your ground. Then to hear now, like 15, 20 years, this person would be like older and now all of a sudden goes, that's so amazing. They don't go to parties. They don't do this. They don't drink. They don't, basic stuff that every Muslim does. Like it's not even an accomplishment. For them, it's like this, oh my goodness, what's going on?
That's what's cool now.
Yeah.
We spoke more about Sigma, didn't we? About like having like focus on yourself and everything. Even if you look on Instagram these days, there's reels of like people who are, all like, there's like a cut of someone partying and then there's a cut of a guy in a gym and then it's like this dark music. It's like everyone thinks that's cool now, especially as well because I wrestled obviously and then I did MMA for a couple of years there. And then each gym I would go to, if they found out that I was Muslim, they thought it was the coolest thing in the world. Like
Subhanallah,
seriously,
yeah,
people
yeah.
that you would expect would never, like this type of person actually, like the average MMA fan, probably before Khabib and kind of the Muslims who started taking over the UFC scene, they were probably the typical person who would never be interested in Islam, would they?
No, of course not, yeah. And now
So
it's starting to, yeah,
it's
it's
starting to
interesting,
become
yeah.
cool to people who
Yeah.
never say Subhanallah.
Exactly.
It just
Are we doing this?
Okay, let's do
This
it.
is
Let's
the
try
final.
this.
This is the final stage,
This is the final. Honestly, I'm not sure how spicy it will be. So if it's not spicy, then we have to smash it.
Okay,
So we have to
Bismillah.
actually finish it if it's not spicy.
Okay, I'm gonna put a full thing in here then.
Oh,
Bismillah.
Okay, so I'm going to
All
ask
right,
you a
Bismillah.
question right when you do this, and then I'll think after I ask my question. I wanted to go a bit deeper about this thought process, and I was thinking about it because you were like how speech affects people, and we were kind of thinking about, imagine if you were someone who lived a long time ago in a fascist regime. Like imagine if you were the typical soldier in, like, let's say, you know, part of the Communist Party when Stalin was in power. Or maybe you were part of the Nazis. Or maybe you were just a soldier who was expected to do all this evil and you were just following orders. So could you kind of touch upon how Islam gives you the mindset to be able to resist these outside influences when you're so strongly influenced by the society around you?
That is exactly one of the strengths about Islam. It breaks a person from the societal. I mean, if you look at in the Quran, every time a prophet comes, he's coming with a message of Tawheed and he's disrupting the social order, the social balance, the way things are. He's disrupting as well, like Islam and the message of Islam. It disrupts the power dynamics of a society because the ruler is no longer number one. That's why communists always hated religion, and in particular Islam. That's why when you look at the Soviet Union, everywhere they went, they tried to oppress and suppress Islam because they recognize that this is completely antithetical to what they're trying to do, which is allegiance to the state. Whereas Islam and the message of Tawheed is allegiance to Allah and His Messenger, and it's something higher. And so the Islamic message, if you look at the 5 pillars, it brings about freedom of the individual. And, you know, individualism is obviously something that the West prides itself on. And obviously there's extreme individualism, which is the idea of, you know, just following your desires. But the individualism of Islam is something about basically freeing yourself from the shackles of society, of this world, of slavery to this world, and you obtain freedom by submitting to Allah. So if a person is, for example, in a situation, that's where you'll find Muslims who will be trained even from however it is to constantly resist against forces. Firstly, it's their desires. If you can't resist against your own personal desires, how are you going to go and resist against someone that's trying to tell you what to do? So, and in some ways, the nafs is much harder to actually resist against than somebody else. And so there's constantly this battle, waking up for Fajr, you know, fasting in Ramadan. All these different things are there to set up to build resilience in a person so they act in accordance with their morals and ethics. And the second thing is they have a separate, coherent, and upright way, a sirat al-mustaqim, a sirat al-qayyiman, a path in the Quran and Revelation that is, that is qayyim, that is like upright. It is something that is established, firmly rooted as well. And this tradition and this ethics informs that person, and the person cannot then become a puppet for someone else, brainwashed for someone else, because they have a worldview and a principle and a tradition that can inform them on all these issues that they differ about. Allah says this in the Quran, Allah sends this book down as guidance لِمَا اخْتُلِفَ فِيهِ in what they differ about. And so all these things that people talk about, this political system, that political system, this racism, this thing, for a Muslim it's very simple, because there's a clear sirat, there's a clear path to know what's right and what's wrong. And then number 2, not only is there a clear path to know what's right and what's wrong, there's also the mental fortitude and the spiritual fortitude to resist against the pathways from getting you from there.
Wow, what an amazing answer. SubhanAllah. Yeah, so that's kind of along the lines of what I was thinking about it as well, in terms of Islam kind of giving you that objective moral fortitude in order to kind of suppress these outside influences. I wanted to get actually really deep into this as well, but I know that you could honestly do an entire talk on this. But
you said we have to smash this, right? How did you find this?
Smash it. It
wasn't that spicy at all, man.
It wasn't that spicy.
This was really disappointing, but mashallah,
Okay.
tasty.
It
All of
tastes
them are
good,
very
mashallah.
tasty, mashallah.
Well, you know what? Next time, inshallah, we know that we can handle habanero pepper, which is what this is. So next time we can move into the whatever is next, like the ghost pepper and the Carolina Reaper and that stuff.
I think
Let's
we just have
do
to
it
eat the
separate.
chilies.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, yeah, fair enough. We can do this, inshallah.
Okay, you have to eat this one then.
Okay, I will. Okay, I'll do it. I'm not as good as you at handling spice, but I'll do it. Okay, Bismillah. Can I ask my question first?
Sure.
So, okay. So I'll ask my question. So what I was thinking was, if you think about today's society and you kind of contextualize this into the outside influences today, so obviously the big one is the LGBT movement and everything that's happening there. This is something in particular that I've seen as an issue. And I think with your medical background, coupled with your Islamic knowledge, mashallah, you're most qualified to answer this. So what would you say about people who kind of make depression almost like a secret club, that if you want to be a part of it, you have to have depression too? Particularly you see this in online forums where it's almost cool to have depression. What do you have to say about people who say that depression is not real at all and that you can cure yourself of any kind of mental ailment that you have? And what do you say on the flip side where people say that it's purely a chemical reaction and you need drugs to counteract this? And I just want to make it clear too that we don't want to go into the mindset that we say that depression is entirely false. I want to say that chronic depression, and that you can't actually change this without drugs, is that real or not? I want to just speak on that.
Because depression itself obviously is, I mean, there's thousands of years of recorded human history that describe a kind of condition of depression and fatigue, lethargy, rumination, et cetera, et cetera. So look, this is a very important point you touched on. So I want to just mention a few things about it. Number one is, you're right, there is a problematic culture. Oh.
Well, I mean, you gave it to me, I have to. I haven't finished
You you ate the whole thing. I thought you were going to take half because I have to eat the other half.
No, I have to do it.
Okay. So there is a problematic culture, especially amongst young Gen Zs and also kind of now Gen Alphas as they're coming up as well, where there is a coolness factor that goes around mental health and depression. There is a kind of it's a status. It's something that people are seeking. And a person wants to get diagnosed, be put on medication because it's cool to be sad and depressed. And it also is this thing that feeds into the intelligence thing, because then people say like, yeah, only real smart people get depressed because they're such deep thinkers and they're so intelligent. It's only people who are very smart. I feel bad, man. I should have eaten some of the pepper too.
We'll get you next time.
Okay. So it is a problem. It is a problem. And I think that I would see it in the emergencies. They'd come through like, and you always see this type of attention-seeking type behavior in people who, and even in clinic as well, you can tell like when a person is genuinely, having a mental illness versus a person that's actually just trying to make this aura on social media, essentially.
Like the hypochondriac almost.
Yeah, it's a different thing. This is just more about they want to be cool, so they want to act depressed and they want to say that they're depressed. And you can tell, like sometimes you'll speak to them and they'll say, like you'll say something, like, yeah, this is consistent with depression, and all of a sudden, like, there's just a smile that just comes up the moment that you've mentioned that word that they were looking for. So that's a very...
They smile when you tell them they're depressed?
Yeah.
Well, isn't that kind of an oxymoron?
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, they're depressed. Why are they smiling?
But that's the point.
You can still smile when you're depressed.
No, I'm not saying, no, that's my whole point. I'm saying that's the... Yes, you can still smile even if you're depressed. That's true. Okay. But also, I'm trying to say that this is the whole point. They're searching for that. They're wanting that type of like response from the health professional.
Sorry, just on this point too, isn't it? It's sunnah to smile, right?
Yeah.
And also, isn't it psychologically proven that smiling actually improves your mood, even if you're fake smiling?
Yeah. Is that what you're doing right now?
I'm trying to.
So, as I was saying, so that's one issue. So they are actually. There is something of true mental illness and true depression. No one's denying that. But there are people who are really making it cool. And so there are definitely people who are faking. But then there are people with the power of suggestion. They might be sad a little bit. But because all of this is everywhere and it's being pushed in everyone's face. Like, are you sad? Are you okay? Depression this, depression awareness, all this stuff. So what it does is, there's like, I'm feeling sad. Am I depressed? Is this depression? Like, this is a normal thing for teenagers, especially people going through puberty. It's a very normal thing for them to be a bit moody and whatnot. But then all of a sudden, because of the power of suggestion, they think, oh my God, is this? And it's genuine. It's not like because there's levels, right? There's darajat. There's like the munafiqun who are like completely faking it. Then there's the people who like psych themselves into it that otherwise perhaps would have just maybe 20, 30 years ago would have just kind of in a few months just gotten over it and it would have been fine. But now it's like diagnosis, medication, and it becomes a label that they keep with themselves. Then there are people that are just genuine. And there is certainly a genuine reason why there's an increase in prevalence in mental health because of the way that we're living, because of the things like social media, because of even how comfortable life is can paradoxically have an effect on a person's mood. There's all these different factors of kind of modern living that would lead society to kind of being depressogenic. So that's in terms of prevalent mental health and depression and what the reality is. Your question about, medication, and the question is it purely biological versus is it something that's psychological or spiritual? Actually Abu Zayd al-Balkhi, rahimahullah, he passed away 270 something, I believe, 3rd century. Early on, he actually has a manual on mental disorders. It's actually the earliest that we have available to us of anyone who has actually categorized mental illnesses and provided treatment plans and even therapy as well.
What year was that, sorry?
It was in the 200s, after Hijrah. Yeah. So it would have been like 800 something. It's published actually, this manuscript was found very recently, like a few decades ago. It was published by Dr. Malik al-Badri, rahimahullah, the late Dr. Malik al-Badri, and he published it. It's called, it's by Abu Zayd al-Balkhi. If you just search Abu Zayd al-Balkhi, you'll find it's the only book of his that's been published. And it's beautifully translated into English. If anyone's interested in Islamic psychology, that's certainly a book to start with. So he even talks about biologically rooted depression. Ibn al-Qayyim talks about mood disorders that are treated with physical physical cures, like physical substances. The Prophet ﷺ actually advised talbina. Talbina is kind of a drink of like date and milk and honey.
Yeah.
You've had it?
I've seen this, yes. I think I've had it too.
We should have talbina next time, huh?
That would be amazing.
No, our moods are going to be
After
like,
this, yes.
mashallah,
Inshallah.
Okay, excellent. So that's a physical substance. So clearly, like, this is not something that's anti-Islam as people think about the idea of biology. Having said that, it's obviously not correct to take a purely reductionist view. And even in conventional psychiatry, they have this concept of formulating a case and recognizing various factors that are contributing to the patient's symptoms: biological, psychological, social, environmental, spiritual. They should, but they don't as much. All these things are leading into a person's mental state. So there's a recognition, even in our times, nobody says something's purely biological. That's why therapy works. And so in terms of medication, there are, because of, as I said, there's certainly, you read, there's a lot of people who are speaking about this, like psychiatrists themselves, about the over-diagnosis perhaps of certain mental disorders, and then therefore the over-treatment possibly of the SSRIs, which are the selective serotonin or reuptake inhibitors, which are the mainstay antidepressants that are used. These ones, they boost your mood, they boost your energy essentially. If you are sad because you are having a traumatic, period in life, this is not going to make you happy or be able to deal with it. That's not how they work. That's not the point of them. It's for people who are so like depressed, they can't get out of bed. They're in bed for 18 hours. Like they just can't get out. People who are fatigued, people who are crying.
I'm not crying. I'm sorry, it's like the thing. There's tears down my eyes, but I'm not crying. We won't say who said that.
Yeah, I don't know who said that, but anyways. But anyway, so like people who are so depressed in that sense, they need something to boost their energy a bit essentially, so that they can go to therapy and do other things. That's what we're talking about. That's what it's helpful for. Yeah, but if a person's like got their energy and they're just really sad about something, sometimes they just need therapy or some counseling. So it's all about your needs, and that's why going to a doctor, your family doctor, your GP is a good starting place, because they're able to they're trained to sift through and see, okay, what symptom are you presenting with? What do you really need? Do you need just counseling? Do you need an actual tablet or whatnot? I mean, some people, as I said, they just push, medication. Other people are a bit more discerning. I have a podcast about this actually.
Yes, I was going to say this.
I forgot.
You have a talk. Everyone tune in to Dogma Disrupted.
Yeah.
And then you did a talk on mental health.
It's called Dogma. Yeah, it was on the mental health industry. Yeah.
The mental health industry and why they need to consider the mind as well, and not just
the spirit.
a material point of view.
Yeah.
on everything. So you're saying if someone has depression, you can't just send them to the mountains of Dagestan to train and it'll just be automatically cured, right? Because I'm baking on this.
Is that what you did?
No, I'm just saying, like, if I ever have maybe inshallah a son or a friend who has depression, I just send them to Dagestan and see
Inshallah,
how they
your
go.
son or friend doesn't have it. But yeah, khalas,
Inshallah.
that sounds. You tell me, let me know how it goes. We can do some randomized control trials. One goes to Dagestan, the other goes to
High
don't
school
know,
or something. and
France.
it gets worse. France, yeah. Well, I mean, France will just...
Anyways, khair inshallah. Alhamdulillah. Are we wrapping up?
I think I had another question. I just have to try to remember what it was.
Bismillah.
So what was the name of the book you said?
Sustenance of the soul.
Sustenance of Malik al-Badri.
Abu Zayd al-Balkhi.
Does it almost become a self-fulfilling prophecy at times? Like, is it almost like if you tell yourself you have it, then it starts to manifest in your brain, and then you're starting to convince yourself that you actually do have it, and then it kind of takes over, or?
Sorry. Yeah, that's a possibility as well. People can really psych themselves out, and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. And everything becomes, you follow a script. I mean, sometimes it can even happen with things like jinn possession as well. Oh, that's a whole nother topic.
Oh,
Not to bring this up
you have
now.
some stories about this too, don't you?
No, I don't have too many stories about
Okay.
this. But yeah, a lot of times someone's, family might be suggesting to the person that a jinn has
Or
possessed
it's
you.
Ain as well. They do
Yeah,
that
yeah,
a lot in Desi cultures.
And then, but sometimes it's just the power of suggestion as well. So,
Okay, well, I'll wrap it up with one last question. I wanted to ask you, just in terms of very relevant, what's happening in Palestine, and you see some of the children, like mashallah, the amount of positivity that they're able to maintain while enduring such a horrible calamity. And you see this in countries like Syria and Afghanistan as well. Like, you see even the children in Africa, you see these YouTubers who take them like a lollipop, and then all the kids are going crazy and they're so happy. You see kids here, they're not happy with anything. Right? So can you speak on this a little bit as well, just the power of shukr, or maybe even like the survival instinct, as they call it in the West, which enables people who are going through horrible calamities to just kind of keep pushing because they've got that in the back of their mind.
it's exactly as you said it. It's that there are situations that Allah puts people through, and Allah knows who to put where. Actually, there's a narration that Allah might withhold wealth from someone because He knows that wealth would corrupt them, and Allah withholds poverty from someone because He knows that poverty would corrupt him and make him lose his faith. Essentially, so Allah put everyone where they're meant to be, and yeah, certainly it's something that you see, which is an issue of mental health in even younger ages. Like you're seeing it in 7, 8, 9 years old. Which is a big problem because you're starting to see kids who are 8, 9 getting diagnosed with depression and anxiety and everything like this. And some of it's just because they haven't met any resistance in life. Parents are really nice, obviously, which is a good thing. That's not a bad thing. Life is very good. But the point is that there needs to be some resistance. And that's why what's mentioned from our tradition is the harder test is the test of gratitude. Because patience, you're forced to do it and then you grow from it. Gratitude is hard. If you can do it right, you will grow from it. You can actually grow from blessings. And it's so difficult to do that because it requires such spiritual fortitude to essentially forego whatever pleasure you're getting and focus and obsession and focus it on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through it. That's a very challenging level in daraja, but the resistance is there and it builds your spirit. So the point isn't like, we're living such prosperity and this is why your kids are weak. It's like, okay, what do we do about this? Oh, let's send them to Dagestan, which is one way.
I like that.
Which is one way, but the other way is why don't we actually try and practice proper gratitude? أَفَلَا أَكُونَ عَبْدًا شُكُورًا, as the Prophet ﷺ said when they saw his feet swell with his feet swollen and there was blood coming from it because of how long he would stand in salah. And they said, hasn't Allah already declared He's forgiven everything before and after? And he said, أَفَلَا أَكُونُ عَبْدًا شُكُورًا, shouldn't I be a grateful servant? So the motivation to pray in tahajjud is not as much there when things are so comfortable than when it's there when your back's against the wall. So for the Prophet ﷺ to be able to do that, if someone sinned or done something wrong, it's like the motivation, I need to stand and ask Allah for forgiveness. It's like there's no other reason but true gratitude. And the reason why it's harder and at such a high level is because that's what true, genuine love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is. that it's not based on, oh, you need something, or, oh, things are rough, and so I'm remembering. It's like, even when everything around me is distracting me, I'm still thinking about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Okay, we'll try. I'll have another drink.
Excellent. All right,
Wait,
so we
that
have to
chili
guess
was
this one,
very
yeah?
Easy, by the
Bismillah.
way. It wasn't a problem at all. I mean,
Okay, so I taste some lemon, oranges, obviously,
yes.
and I thought I tasted some soda water, but it's not there. I think it's just maybe lemonade and orange juice.
Okay, I don't think it's very sophisticated, to be honest. I think
What
it's
is it?
I think it's just one thing. I'm pretty sure it's cordial.
Again, just another cordial drink.
It's not cordial.
It's not cordial?
tang.
Oh,
Okay.
tang! That's what it tastes like.
Well, I mean, I didn't get to guess. That's exactly what I was going to guess, by the way.
Powdered cordial.
I was going to say it was mango flavored. Is that mango flavored?
That's not mango.
It's not mango?
It's orange, yeah. It's orange tang. Awesome.
All right, well.
Alrighty.
This round.
Alhamdulillah. Alrighty. Take care, guys.
Amazing.
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.